Thank you, sir, for the kind introduction. Honorable Chairperson and friends, my previous speaker, Dr. Vinod Mittal, was very lucky because both the trials that he talked about, the DAPA-HF and EMPEROR-reduced, have been published and he could very well talk about them. What I'm going to talk about today is landmark trials in heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, which I think is a stepchild because we were unable to treat it and I'll be talking on two trials, the DELIVER and the EMPEROR Preserved. Fortunately, the EMPEROR Preserved trial has been published recently, but the DELIVER trial is still ongoing. So I may have to speculate and extrapolate a little bit. Now, we all know the universal definition of heart failure, and he talked about heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, that is LVF less than 40%. And actually, if I talk about heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, it should be more than 50%. And we have that mid-range, 41 to 49%, which was earlier called mid-range, but is now called mildly reduced heart failure or mildly reduced ejection fraction heart failure. Now, the problem is that all the trials of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction have included this group also. So things have become a bit difficult to analyze because this is not exactly only heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, but this is also heart failure with mildly reduced ejection fraction. Now, it's very difficult to understand heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, and if you look at this huge data, cardiac, pulmonary, liver, renal, visceral adiposity, musculoskeletal, what not is involved. But to make things very simple for you, I will just say it is nothing but metabolic stress, aging, cardiac remodeling, ventricular vascular stiffening, and a sedentary lifestyle, which leads to loss of cardiac, vascular, and skeletal muscle reserve. And this is ultimately what leads to heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Now, to differentiate from heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, the basic defect is an alteration of left ventricular filling, and the clinical profile is of an elderly woman who is hypertensive or having atrial fibrillation or valvular heart disease or other comorbidities. There is concentric remodeling, myocardial inflammation and fibrosis are more prominent, and there is little impact of vasodilators in the treatment. It is very important to know that the diagnosis of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction is not an easy job. It requires an initial workup, and these are recommendations from the recent recommendations from the Heart Failure Society and the European Society of Cardiology. An initial workup is basically a pre-test assessment. It requires a diagnostic workup with echocardiographic and biomarkers. It requires an advanced workup with functional testing in cases of uncertainty, and it requires an etiological workup to reach the final etiology. Now, why I'm talking about this? Because this further substantiates the significance of the two trials that I'm going to talk about, which utilize a comprehensive diagnostic approach to evaluate heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Now, in India, the Trivandrum Heart Failure Registry has shown that the prevalence is around 26%, and it is more in women 33% and men 22%. The mortality reaches to almost 40% at the end of 3 years. If you look at the treatments of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, the treatments that we used and have been successful in heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, the RAS blockers, the ARNIs, the beta blockers, and the MRAs have largely been negative or inconclusive. Why? Possibly some differences in pathophysiology, and that is the reason why these drugs have not been effective. But the Paragon HF trial using the ARNIs, even though it has been inconclusive in totality, it missed the primary objective, it did show a tendency for benefit in a certain subset of people, which I'll talk about later. And similarly, the recent Parallax trial joins Paragon heart failure trial in failing to deliver a win for the ARNIs in heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. There was no difference in the composite primary endpoint, but exploratory secondary endpoints, including improvements in the New York Heart Association class and quality of life and reduced likelihood of worsening renal function, did hint at a benefit. But remember, sir, these are secondary endpoints and we cannot make our decisions on secondary endpoints. At the moment, the current steps for treating clinical management of heart failure is difficult. It's just targeting the symptoms, diagnosing and treating comorbidities, and modifying lifestyle. And there are only two class 1 recommendations: treatment of comorbidities to improve symptoms and the use of diuretics to alleviate symptoms of congestion. And if you look at the primary outcomes of major studies in patients with heart failure, right from the CHARM preserved with candesartan to the PEP-CHA with perindopril preserve and the spironolactone, TopCat study with spironolactone, and the Paragon HF with the ARNI sacubitril valsartan. See, all these trials, if you look at the benefit is very modest, somewhere around 5%, 11%, 13%, and it is of borderline statistical significance. But subgroup analysis did suggest that in that subgroup of ejection fraction of 40 to 49%, there has been some benefit that has been seen. So that is why I said initially, if you include that group into this whole area of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, things become a bit difficult to analyze. It was only the Emperor preserved trial which showed a 21% reduction in cardiovascular death and hospitalization of heart failure, and which was statistically significant. Now, before I go to the DELIVER trial, because I'll talk about the DELIVER trial because it has not yet been published, so I can easily finish it off. There was one trial published recently with DAPA just to counter what the EMPA preserved trial was there, so they wanted to counter it, but it looked only at physical symptoms and the 6-minute walk test which Dr. Lalwani mentioned. So I didn't think it was so significant to include in my talk, because this was just one step they took just to show that DAPA is also there, and we are coming with the results of DAPA, this DELIVER trial. Now, this is the latest data posted in their website on October 4th this year. And this, though the study started somewhere in August 27, 2018, it is expected to be completed in mid-January next year. If you look at the original primary outcome, this was basically cardiovascular death, hospitalization for heart failure, urgent hospital heart failure visit, at the time, and that was for 33 months period. But due to COVID, they had to extend it to 39 months, and they also added a subgroup. So they changed the goalpost. It was not only a full study population, but they also wanted to look at a subpopulation of an LVF of less than 60%. Similarly, with the secondary objectives. But the question is, the design of the DELIVER trial is going to be unique in several ways, and how it is. Because it is designed to complement what Dr. Vinod Mittal talked about, the DAPA-HF trial. The results of both studies will be pooled to assess the effects of DAPA across a wide spectrum of ejection fraction. And the entry criteria has patients with heart failure with both elevated biomarkers like natriuretic peptides and evidence of structural heart disease. It is enrolling patients with more than 40% LVF, but it is also allowing patients with less than 40% to be enrolled, so giving us a wide range of the mildly reduced ejection fraction. Of course, the primary outcome, as I said, is hospitalization, heart failure, urgent heart failure visits. And in the incorporation in DELIVER of the dual primary analysis with appropriate protection against multiple comparisons allows for a possibility of differential effect of LVF while preserving adequate statistical power to assess both the overall study population. Now, if you compare the DELIVER and EMPEROR preserved, we'll just talk about, They basically have a similar entry criteria, except for the EF entry is 48% in one, 45% in the other. But the primary differences are the dual primary endpoints in DELIVER. And this gives us a hypothesis about the full population and in a subset of population with left ventricular ejection fraction at different levels. Coming to the Emperor Preserve trial, basically the aim was to investigate the safety and efficacy of EMPA versus placebo in patients with heart failure with preserved ejection fraction in both diabetes and patients without diabetes, more than 18 years, chronic heart failure, and an eGFR more than 20 ml in almost 6,000 patients randomized to the once EMPA and placebo. The composite primary endpoint, that is time to first event, is either cardiovascular death or hospitalization for heart failure. And the key secondary endpoints are adjudicated hospitalization for heart failure and an eGFR or CKD measured through CKD API slope of change from the baseline. So these were the two secondary endpoints. Now, if you look at the characteristics of patients, both the EMPA and placebo, they are almost similar as far as the functional class is concerned, the BMI, the left ventricular ejection fraction, etc., etc. So they're, and also basically on the RAS, those who were in RAS and MRAs and beta blockers, and 2% of the patients in Emperor Preserved were receiving ARNIs at the baseline. Again, if you see, there was compare the Emperor Preserved with the previous trials with the other drugs like the Paragon-HF, Charm-Prison, Topcat. What we see is that the Emperor Preserved includes more patients with NYHA class 2, more patients with comorbidities like hypertension, diabetes and CKD, and fewer patients with recent hospitalization for heart failure, a higher median anti-pro BNP, and a left ventricular ejection fraction which is almost similar, and a greater use of MRAs at baseline. So there is a difference from the previous trials. So in the Emperor Preserve trial, 93% of patients were enrolled based on structural changes in the heart. That is very important to realize, because we have to find out how the structural changes responded. And looking at the results, there was a 21% relative risk reduction in the composite primary endpoint of cardiovascular death or hospitalization for heart failure, which means the number needed to treat is only 31. And the significant benefit was seen from the 18th day onwards, as early as 18 days. And if we further analyze, we see that both the hospitalization of heart failure and cardiovascular death, both the components, primary components, contributed to the beneficial effects, statistically almost similar. If you look at the secondary endpoints, there was 27% reduction, relative risk reduction in the composite secondary endpoints. And the improvements were seen in the New York Heart Association class from around 12 weeks onwards. So within 3 months, the patient started showing improvements in his breathlessness and his dystic. Now, if you look at the slowing of the decline in the kidney function, the slowing decline was 1.36 ml per minute, difference in the eGFR slope. And this was almost half of what was seen with the placebo. And if you compare it depending on more than 40% decline in the eGFR, more than 50% decline, and if you look at this beautiful cartoon here, the trend we see is excellent in an ejection fraction of 40 to 50, but is attenuated in more than 60%. Again, giving us an idea that these things work better in borderline, maybe between 40 to 60, but more than 60, this trend is not seen. And obviously, there was an improvement in the Kansas City Cardiomyopathy Questionnaire. This was a clinical summary score. We find an improvement with EMPA. Now, the results were consistent and clinically meaningful across all pre-specified patient groups. Except if you look at the sex, you'll find slightly females showed a better result. But as I said, that's good because females are preponderant as far as heart failure with preserved ejection fraction is concerned. But there was no difference with race, age, ethnicity, overall baseline medications, the baseline diabetes status, the EGFR, etc. But again, if you look at the baseline LVF, we find there is attenuation in more than 60%. So once more, we are getting a picture that this drug works very well, somewhere between 40 to 60% and not above 60%. Side effects, almost as good as a placebo, similar frequency of hypoglycemia and ketoacidosis, of course slightly more amount of genital infections as expected. So to conclude the Emperor Preserve trial itself, these were patients with heart failure, ejection fraction of more than 40%, reduced the composite of cardiovascular death and hospitalization for heart failure by 21%, which was statistically significant. And the benefit of EMPA on the primary endpoint was consistent across all pre-specified groups. Slight differences in the LVF, when I said not very effective, in more than 60 attenuation. It reduced the total first and recurrent hospitalization for heart failure by 27%. And this is the first trial to show unequivocal clinical benefits with the drug in patients with heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. And it created a windstorm. Excuse me. Now let's look. What could be the possible mechanism of this drug working in a patient with heart failure with preserved ejection fraction? We know it causes it depresses the RAS system, decreases oxidative stress, decreases inflammation, decreases the sympathetic nervous system activity. So what it is doing? It is interfering with the primary pathophysiological mechanism driving the underlying etiology of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. That is systemic inflammation, that is oxidative stress, and that is neurohormonal activation. And this reduction can attenuate the adverse cardiovascular events. And we have data from the previous studies where it has been shown that it directly improves diastolic function in the human heart failure compared to those with normal patients. Now, artificial intelligence was used to look at the molecular mechanism and how this drug is working. And it was shown that it inhibits basically the sodium hydrogen exchange 1 and the prominent role, and it modulates the cardiomyocyte oxidative stress. So the cascade is upstream. There's a decrease in the cardiomyocyte oxidative stress and systemic inflammation. Downstream, there is a decrease in the cardiomyocyte stiffness, extracellular matrix remodeling, and concentric hypertrophy. And it could reverse 59% of the protein alterations relevant to the pathogenesis of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. That is where it is interfering with the structural heart disease. And this is a wonderful comparison. I know studies cannot be compared as such, but Milton Packer tried to compare the results of this EMPA with ARNIS. And he said, look, except for the cardiovascular death, which is almost similar, the EMPA seems to work much better when cardiovascular death and heart failure hospitalization is concerned, time to first heart failure hospitalization is concerned, and time to first and recurrent heart failure hospitalization is concerned. So these three areas, EMPAs are working better than ARNIS. So we know the foundational therapy of heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, which Dr. Lalwani very nicely talked about, the 4 pillars. And now we have the foundational therapy in heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. We had the ARNIS approved by the FDA recently for a select subset, women with an ejection fraction of 45 to 57%, and this was approved in February this year. And now we have the SGLT2 inhibitors. Now Eugene Braunwald, the father of cardiology, when he looked at these results, he said, this is the biggest breakthrough that I have seen in my career. And he said, breakthrough in inverted commas. And he said, why inverted commas? Because I'll remove the inverted commas once I see the results of the DELIVER trial, which is going to stamp it. And another quote that he said was, heart failure with preserved ejection fraction is a stepchild no more. now we have something to treat. Thank you, friends, for a patient hearing.